I asked him if he would be willing to split it, the funeral expenses.
There was insurance that covered your son's funeral.
Yes.
I don't want the money. I wanted it for her.
It has nothing to do with you. That's between she and her father. You and Mr. Moten were married and divorced many years ago. When were you divorced?
2007.
And you had children together?
Yes.
How many?
2.
Boy and a girl?
Yes.
Your son was 23 when he was tragically killed in an automobile accident. When was that?
June 21st.
Of this year?
Yes.
And at the time of this terrible accident, he had been employed.
Yes.
According to what I've read, I think unbeknownst to you or to his father, he had an insurance policy.
Yes.
And it's unclear from the papers whether the insurance policy named beneficiaries or there were beneficiaries by law, which means he didn't put a beneficiary down, but the law says that since he didn't put a beneficiary down, the proceeds of the life insurance policy will be divided between his 2 parents.
Yes.
Well, before I go on, would you tell me whether or not the insurance policy named beneficiaries?
No.
The lawsuit is about this. There was evidently from the insurance policy, you received $19,000 and your son's father, the defendant, received $19,000. And you allege that there was an agreement, a verbal agreement, between you and your former husband that he would return $10,000 to you to cover some of the funeral expenses and to distribute to his sister, because that's what he would have wanted. Anyway, that's what the case is about. And the defendant says that there was never such an agreement and he was not consulted about the funeral or the expenses for the funeral, and he doesn't feel as if he has to return that money at all. Okay. You did receive the $19,000?
Yes.
And so did you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now you're going to tell me about the discussion about him giving you money from his $19,000.
So,
Look here, please.
about a week after his passing, I went to his place of work and we discussed. I said,
Did you have an appointment to see him?
no.
You just went there?
He works at a bar that I
Whatever.
frequent.
And that's after you received the letter from the insurance company indicating he would be receiving $19,000.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so tell me about the conversation.
So I asked him if he would be willing to split it. All of the expenses occurred around the accident and then the funeral expenses.
What are all the expenses surrounding the accident?
So he hit a pole and I wasn't sure if the city would have a bill for that as well.
Your insurance should cover that. It's liability.
So at the point, I didn't want to go through my insurance because there was a policy and I was just going to pay it out of there because I didn't want the insurance to go up. There was someone else.
That's your choice.
Yes.
That's your choice.
Yes,
That's
ma'am.
not his responsibility. You have insurance for your car. Your son was driving your car,
Yes.
and the insurance would cover any damage that your son did to public property or anybody's personal property.
Yes, ma'am.
How much was it, by the way?
They never charged me.
Okay, so that's not an issue anymore.
Correct.
So the only expense there was the funeral expense.
Correct.
So at the time you asked him for other expenses, which I'm just told you that I don't feel you would be entitled to.
Yes, ma'am.
Because you had insurance. If there was a claim by either a private person or a governmental agency for damage that your son did with the car, funeral expenses are another thing. So let's talk about that. And what did he say to you?
He agreed. He said he didn't see a problem with paying half of everything and then splitting. I would give his surviving sibling a portion of it, the life insurance policy, and he would as well. And the reason we did that was because he stayed amongst the 3 of us, me and his 2 siblings. So I felt it was...
What? You have a daughter? How many children do you have?
I have 3. I have another son.
This is not his father?
Correct.
Okay. So what you're telling me is that you had the conversation about funeral expenses. Do you remember that part of the conversation about the funeral expenses, sir?
I do, Your Honor.
Okay. And tell me what you agreed to do with regard to the funeral expenses.
In the beginning, I did not agree to it. I felt like if the kids needed anything, they can come to me and ask me for it, and
Not the kids. I'm talking about his funeral
I'm
expenses.
sorry, my daughter. If my daughter needed something, she can come and ask for it. I wanted to give her some money out of my pocket.
Well, that's your...
I didn't want to agree to anything.
He agreed.
I'm talking about the funeral expenses only now.
I was told that the funeral expenses were covered by the insurance.
By what insurance?
The life insurance policy.
Were the funeral expenses covered by the life insurance policy?
Not his policy, no. I have a separate policy that it was covered for. But at the time...
Just a second. What kind of policy do you have that your son's funeral expenses were covered from?
Through work. I had a life insurance policy on them.
On your son?
Yes, on all three of them.
This was a separate policy other than his?
Correct.
And how much was that policy?
$10,000.
So you had a $10,000 life insurance policy through work, and it was through work, so I assume that the cost to you was either zero or minimal, correct?
Correct.
And you did receive $10,000 from that policy?
Yes.
And did you receive the $10,000 from that policy in addition to the funeral expenses?
No, the policy deducted the expenses of the funeral from the funeral home.
Okay, and the funeral expenses were $5,000?
Correct.
And so on that policy, you received $5,000?
Yes.
Okay, and you received, in addition to the $5,000, $19,000
Yes.
from your son's policy?
Yes.
Okay, so you were not aware of the fact at the time that there was insurance that covered your son's funeral?
No, I was not.
Okay, well, there was, so we don't have to deal with that. Would you agree that if there was not insurance that paid for that, it would be right for you to cover half of the funeral expenses?
Absolutely.
Okay. With regard to giving you $10,000, which is what you're suing for, to disperse to the other children, why would I do that?
He was only supposed to do it for his daughter.
Well, that's up to
And
him.
he agreed to it.
Then let him do it.
He didn't do it.
If he wants to give, that's a gratuitous thing. I'm not getting involved with.
There was also expenses.
What I'm telling you is, with regard to money for his daughter, that's between he and his daughter. He inherited some money. If he wants to share it with his other child, he can do that. Do you have any other children other than the boy and the girl?
No.
Okay, so he has now one child, and if he wants to give her some money out of this money that he got from this tragic accident, he can do that. That's not a lawsuit. What other expenses do you think that he's responsible for?
The venue, the flowers, the cost of his suits that we had to put him in, all of the other things that was not...
Yeah, you had a $10,000 life insurance policy on your son. Clearly, all of those expenses didn't reach $10,000.
He agreed to pay for half of everything.
No.
So he doesn't have to...
Madam, I'm not even going to ask him that question. What your request is unreasonable. He does not sound like a foolish man. He said if...
We have messages that he said he would do it.
Well, I'm telling you, if he wants to give money to his daughter, I'm telling you that's would be lovely. If he wanted to make a gift to her of money, that's fine. He's not giving you any money.
I don't want the money. I wanted it for her.
Just a second. That's between she and her father. How old are you?
27.
That's between she and her father. She wants to have a discussion with her father and her father wants to help her. That's up to her. It has nothing to do with you. I would certainly have entertained an application for your expenses and would have tried to prevail upon the defendant that it was the right thing to do if this was the only money that was generated to pay for anything, and if it was insufficient to pay for the funeral, that it would have been, you would have agreed right for you to pay for half the funeral.
Yes.
But it was covered by insurance. The whole thing was covered by insurance. Am I wrong about that? Was it more than $10,000? No. Okay, your case is dismissed, madam. We both have my sympathies. It's a tragedy to lose a child. Don't make it more difficult. That's all.
I don't think it was fair. He agreed to pay for half of expenses, regardless if there was a policy for it.
I feel like justice was served today.
He agreed to give half of it to his daughter, which he still did not.
I hope she grows up and matures and understands and comes to me correctly, and then maybe we can resolve the issue.
He's not a man of his word.
Moving forward, I got a lot of things in the works. I'm turning my life around, and I'm trying to make a better person out of myself.
In her complaint, there was no information or suggestion that she had a life insurance policy for her children that had to have been designed to pay for funeral expenses, and she had it through work, which means, and she said she paid either nothing or minimal for it. I'm not sure whether it was at the daughter's request or if the plaintiff, the mother, was so angry that he benefited financially in any way. And it's clear also from the papers that he was not an involved parent for a good number of those years. He said he was renewing his relationship with his son. You know, emotionally, you may understand why the plaintiff said it's not fair that he in any way financially benefit from this tragedy.
But she did in the same way.
She did, but she says, I raised him.
Sure.
And he did not participate in that. So she feels differently. And
I think an important, just little piece of that case is if you have a life insurance policy, I know the son received it from his work, list a beneficiary. If you know you have one parent that really took care of you your entire life and you're just starting to rekindle with your secondary parent, list the first parent as the beneficiary, and then none of this would have happened.
And people should actually know whether or not they have a life insurance policy. This kid
probably
maybe didn't even know that his work offered this policy, and since he didn't name a beneficiary, because probably nobody, when he signed on to work, said you have to name a beneficiary. Anyway, it's interesting. Young people don't think about that. And maybe the right thing to do for young people as soon as they have anything of value is to create a very short document saying what you want to happen in the event something happens to you so that you don't end up with situations.
All right, this case is honestly really sad. A young man, only 23 years old, tragically died in a car accident. His parents had been divorced for many years, but after his death, something unexpected happened. An insurance dispute between the parents. Now, here's where the situation starts getting complicated. The son had a life insurance policy, but he did not name any beneficiaries. Because of that, the law automatically split the money between both parents. So the mother received $19,000 and the father also received $19,000. But the mother, Latosha, says that after their son's death, she went to talk to her ex-husband and asked if he would split some of the money to help cover funeral expenses and also give some money to their daughter. And she claims he agreed to give her $10,000 from his share. But the father says, hold on, I never agreed to that. And honestly, when you listen to this, you start thinking, seriously, man, this is about your son's death and now we're arguing about money. But then another detail comes out that changes the entire case. The mother actually had another insurance policy through her job, worth $10,000, specifically covering funeral expenses for her children. And that policy already paid the funeral home. So the funeral costs were basically already covered. And this is where Judge Judy steps in and makes it very clear. She says, look, if the father wants to give money to his daughter, that would be a nice gesture, but legally that's between him and his daughter. The mother cannot sue for money on behalf of the daughter, especially when there was no proven agreement. And also, the funeral expenses were already covered by insurance. So legally, the father doesn't owe her anything. And you can almost feel the judge thinking, this case shouldn't even be here. Seriously, this situation is just heartbreaking. A family loses a son, and instead of healing, they end up fighting in court over insurance money. At the end of the day, the judge dismisses the case. No money awarded. Just a tough reminder that not every disagreement after a tragedy becomes a legal obligation. And honestly, sometimes the court can't fix family conflicts. And if you enjoy real courtroom breakdowns and honest reactions like this, make sure you support the channel, like the video, and subscribe for more courtroom drama.